Imagine trying to run, well, an entire empire, keeping incredibly detailed tax records, sending letters, writing down medical procedures, all without paper or computers or anything like we have today. How do they even manage all that information?
It's a huge question, isn't it? I mean, the sheer amount of data, communication, it's kind of mind-boggling for any complex society back then.
It absolutely is. And for ancient Egypt, the answer, or a huge part of it, was this foundational technology, papyrus. And it was, so much more than just ancient paper.
Definitely. And in this deep dive, we're really going to unpack that whole story for you. We'll look at its life cycle, its impact from just a reed in the Nile to, well, a global commodity.
Yeah, we'll see how it shaped, everything. Government, medicine, even how we find out about the ancient world today. We'll look at the plant, the secret of making it into sheets, how writing evolved on it, and its legacy, which is still kind of surprising us. So our journey starts, like so many Egyptian stories, right there along the Nile, with this plant, Cyprus papyrus, Egypt's green gold, they called it. What made this reed so special?
Cyprus papyrus, it's a really fascinating plant. It's tall, aquatic, part of the sedge family. You'd recognize it by its sort of triangular stems, quite distinctive, and these feathery clusters, the umbels at the top. They could get really tall, maybe 10, even 20 feet high. Imagine vast swamps of the stuff.
And it wasn't just growing anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It needed specific conditions.
Exactly, very specific. Shallow, slow-moving, freshwater or water-saturated mud. That's why the Nile marshes, especially the Delta, were just perfect for it. Ancient writers, like Herodotus, even commented on how much of it there was.
But today, it's almost gone from Egypt. What happened there? Climate change.
No, surprisingly not climate change. It's more about ecological shifts and, importantly, economics. The Delta started silting up around the 12th century AD, changing the water levels it needed. But the big thing was cheaper materials like parchment and then paper came along.
So no reason to grow it anymore.
Precisely. The economic drive just vanished, so it faded away. Most of the papyrus you see in Egypt now, it's actually been reintroduced from elsewhere in Africa.
Wow. So that dependence on the Nile environment, it really gave Egypt a unique position, didn't it? Like a centuries-long monopoly on the main writing material for that whole part of the world.
Yeah.
That's incredible power.
It really was. Some people even think the word papyrus comes from Egyptian papyri, meaning that of the pharaoh, sort of hinting at state control.
That makes sense.
And this monopoly gave Egypt huge economic, strategic leverage. There are stories, like under Emperor Tiberius in Rome, their trade apparently just ground to a halt when there was a papyrus crop failure.
Wow.
Yeah, and that vulnerability. That's a big reason why others started looking seriously for alternatives, which, directly led to things like parchment.
Okay, so moving from the plant,
Hmm.
turning it into something you could write on, that was a whole other level of genius, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Not just simple crafting. It sounds like a sophisticated, maybe even secret process. We don't even have full ancient descriptions.
That's absolutely right. What we know now comes from, well, slightly ambiguous accounts like Pliny the Elder's, but mostly from reverse engineering. Scientists looking at old fragments, doing experiments. It was definitely a careful step-by-step thing.
So walk us through it. You harvest the stalks, peel off that tough green rind, get to the white pith inside.
Right. And then, using modern imaging on ancient bits, scientists have figured out they had a couple of main ways to get the strips. They could slice the pith lengthwise, or maybe more complex, they could sort of unwrap it, peeling it continuously.
Unwrapping it, like unrolling a scroll.
Kind of, yeah. Once they had these thin strips while they were still moist, they'd lay them out. One layer, side by side, maybe overlapping just a tiny bit. And then the really clever part, a second layer on top, but turned 90 degrees.
The cross-hatching, that's the key.
Exactly. That perpendicular structure is what defines papyrus sheets. You hold it up to the light, you see that grid. It's brilliant because it gives the sheet strength in both directions, stops it splitting easily.
Okay, layers down. Then they pressed it, like really pressed it.
Oh, yes. They'd pound it with mallets or smooth stones for hours, or use a heavy press. This squeezed out the water, but crucially, it fused the layers together. Then it just needed to dry for about a week.
And a final polish.
Yep, polished smooth with something like ivory or a stone just to make the surface perfect for writing. Then they join the individual sheets, pasting or maybe hammering the edges together to make those really long scrolls. Some could be, 100 feet long.
Incredible. Now, for ages, people wondered if they used some kind of glue. Was there a secret ingredient?
Well, the overwhelming scientific view now is no. No external glue needed. And this is the really amazing bioengineering part.
Go on.
The pith of cypress papyrus is naturally rich in sugary sap. When they hammered and pressed it so intensely, it broke down the plant cells and released the sticky sap.
Wow.
Yeah, the cells basically merged and interlocked. When it dried, it formed this incredibly strong permanent bond, like you said before, almost welded. The plant's own stuff did the job.
That is genuinely ingenious. And it wasn't just one standard product, was it? They had different grades.
Right. You had your high-quality stuff, maybe hieratic grade for religious texts, and then lower grades like emporitic, which might just be used for wrapping things. It definitely points to a sophisticated, standardized industry.
Okay, so you've got this amazing material. You need the right tools to write on it. The scribe's kit is pretty iconic, isn't it?
It really is. Even the hieroglyph for scribe shows the main bits. A palette, a little pouch for pigments, probably leather, and a case for pens.
And the pens weren't like ours. They were reeds.
Mostly, yes. For a long time, they used sea reeds, Juncus maritimus. They'd chew or hammer the tip to make a sort of fine brush. Much later, especially after Greek influence, they also started using a different reed, Phragmites aegyptiaca, cutting it to a sharp point, more like a pen we'd recognize.
And the palette held the ink.
Exactly. Usually wood or ivory with two little dips carved in it for dried cakes of ink, typically black and red. The scribe would just dip the wet reed onto the cake, get some pigment, and write.
And those inks were tough. That's a big reason why we can still read so much today. Just soot and gum Arabic for black, red ochre for red. Simple stuff, but
There was a recent discovery, wasn't there? Something that changed how we think about their ink.
Oh, this is really groundbreaking stuff. Scientists were using advanced X-ray techniques, synchrotron X-rays on papyri from the Roman period, maybe around 100, 200 CE.
Yeah.
and they found complex lead compounds in both the red and the black inks.
Lead. But not as a pigment, you said.
Exactly. That's the kicker. The lead wasn't there for color.
So, what was it doing?
It was acting as a dryer. Its job was to make the ink set faster and probably bind better to the papyrus fibers. And what's wild is this is incredibly similar to how lead dryers were used in European oil painting, but that was developed over 1,400 years later.
Hold on, so they were using chemical dryers in their ink, basically. That early.
It really looks that way.
Does that just completely force us to rethink ancient technology? I mean, that implies a really sophisticated grasp of chemistry, doesn't it? Empirical chemistry, maybe? Not just random luck. It absolutely does. It suggests they weren't just artisans, they were, experimenting. They understood materials on a surprisingly deep level. It points towards specialized knowledge, maybe even workshops developing these things. It definitely challenges any idea that ancient tech was just static.
Wow. Okay. So papyrus wasn't just a passive surface. It actually influenced the writing itself. You mentioned 3 main scripts coexisting in Egypt.
That's right. You had hieroglyphs, the famous pictorial ones, sacred carvings, very formal, mostly used for big inscriptions on stone monuments, temples, tombs.
Right, the ones everyone pictures.
Then, for everyday use on papyrus, you had hieratic, sometimes called the priestly script. It was basically a simplified, cursive version of hieroglyphs, much faster to write,
Yeah.
used for administration, letters, literature.
And more practical.
Exactly. And then, even later, around 650 BCE, you get demotic, the popular or documentary script. Even more cursive, more abstract, lots of signs squished together called ligatures. This was for real daily stuff, legal docs, personal letters.
So they didn't replace each other. One didn't just evolve into the next.
No, they actually coexisted for a long time. It's a system linguist called diglossia. Each script had its specialty. But the key thing is that pressure for speed and efficiency, especially for all that bureaucracy you needed papyrus for, that's what drove the abstraction. From detailed pictures to these fluid, fast scripts like hieratic and demotic.
And the Rosetta Stone is the perfect example, right? It's got hieroglyphs, demotic, and Greek all lined up.
Precisely. Shows them all in use for their specific audiences and functions.
So, thinking about that bureaucracy,
Mm-hmm.
what did papyrus mean for the Egyptian state itself? It sounds like it wasn't just useful, it was fundamental. The engine room.
Utterly indispensable. Think about it. It's lightweight, you can roll it up, store it easily. Perfect for managing a huge, complex state. Scribes use it for everything. Tax records.
You mentioned those detailed tax records earlier, like the Wilbur Papyrus.
Yes. Incredible detail on land ownership, taxes due. You just couldn't do that level of administration without papyrus. Legal documents, too, marriage contracts, wills, court stuff, land surveys, official letters. Everything flowed on papyrus.
And it all connects back to that idea of paper. the pharaoh's material. State control, but also a huge source of income through export.
Exactly. It wasn't just administration, it was big business for the state.
But it wasn't just practical, was it? The plant itself seems deeply woven into their culture, their religion.
Oh, absolutely. It was so identified with the Nile Delta, it became the symbol, the heraldic plant of Lower Egypt. You often see it shown intertwined with the lotus, the symbol of Upper Egypt, representing the unification of the country.
And it had a place in their creation stories.
Yes, the papyrus marshes were seen as sort of primordial places, echoing the creation of the world out of watery chaos, and they brought this idea right into their temples. You see those columns shaped like papyrus stalks? They were meant to transform the temple space into a model of that primeval marsh.
And there was a myth about protection, too, involving Isis and Horus.
A very important one. The story goes that Isis hid her baby son, Horus, from his dangerous uncle Seth within the dense papyrus thickets of the Delta. So papyrus became this powerful symbol of protection, nurturing, divine safety. You see it everywhere on amulets, decorations.
It really was everywhere, and it sounds like they used every single part of the plant, not just the pith for writing. A bit like bamboo in Asia.
That's a great comparison. Absolutely versatile. Bundled stalks made lightweight boats, think Thor Heyerdahl's Ra expeditions. It was used for fuel. Fibers were woven into sails, ropes, baskets, mats. The rhizomes, the sort of root parts, could be eaten or used in medicine, even perfumes. They even made sandals from it. A true multi-purpose resource.
So the real gift of papyrus for us, looking back, is the knowledge it held on to. Thanks to Egypt's dry climate, thousands of scrolls survived. These are direct windows into their world. Let's talk about some of the really surprising things found on them.
Definitely. One of the absolute treasures is the Edwin Smith Papyrus. Dates to around 1600 BCE, but it's likely a copy of something much older, maybe Old Kingdom. It's the world's oldest known surgical text, focusing on trauma. 48 cases of physical injury, laid out head to toe.
And what's stunning about it is how rational it is, right? Very little magic compared to other medical texts. It feels almost modern.
Shockingly so. It has this systematic format for each case. Title, examination involving looking, touching, checking movement, then diagnosis and prognosis. And the prognosis part is amazing. An ailment I will treat. An ailment I will contend with, or an ailment not to be treated. That's basically early medical triage. Then it details the treatment sutures, bandages, even honey as an antiseptic.
And it contains the first ever descriptions of the burn and linking head injury to paralysis on the opposite side of the body.
Yes. First known descriptions of the brain, the meninges covering it, the cerebrospinal fluid, even feeling the pulse within the skull. And that link between head injury and contralateral paralysis, that's neurological insight that, frankly, surpassed Hippocrates by 1,000 years.
It's just incredible. Then there's the Ebers Papyrus, roughly the same time period.
Yes, around 1550 BCE. It's huge, about 20 meters long. More of a general medical encyclopedia with over 800 remedies and incantations.
Ah, so that one blends the practical with the magical more.
It does. It really shows that dual approach in Egyptian healing. But it also has fascinating sections, like a treatise on the heart and a theory about channels carrying fluids through the body, which is seen as a really significant precursor to the later Greek idea of the four humors.
Fascinating. And for the math folks, the Rhind mathematical papyrus?
Also around 1550 BCE, it's basically a scribe's handbook subtitled The Correct Method of Reckoning for Grasping the Meaning of Things. Love that.
What kind of math is in it?
Very practical stuff.
Yeah.
Calculating how much grain a granary could hold, figuring out land area for taxes, working out the slopes of pyramids. It's famous for its complex tables dealing with unit fractions with a 1 on top. And it even contains calculations that give an implied value for pi of about 3.1605. Really remarkably close for the time.
Wow. And there are others too, right? Like the Diary of Mer.
Yes, the absolute oldest inscribed papyrus ever found. It details the day-to-day logistics of workers delivering limestone for the Great Pyramid. Amazing glimpse into that project. Then you have the Westcar Papyrus with magical stories, the Turin King list trying to record all the pharaohs. Each one is just a priceless time capsule.
Papyrus ruled for something like 3,000 years. But eventually, its time passed. It had competitors. How did it stack up against, say, clay tablets in Mesopotamia?
Well, for a long time, people thought of it as a clear split. Papyrus in Egypt, clay in Mesopotamia. Clay was, dirt cheap, abundant. You could smooth it out and reuse it if it wasn't baked. And if it was baked, it was virtually indestructible. That's why we have so many cuneiform tablets. But it's heavy, bulky, not great for long texts or carrying around.
Whereas papyrus was light, flexible, portable, great for ink.
Exactly. But its downsides were being fragile, easily damaged by damp, and crucially, only really available from Egypt.
So was that split papyrus versus clay really that strict? Or is it more complicated?
It's definitely more complicated. What we see is partly down to what survived, what archaeologists call survivorship bias. Egypt's dryness saved papyrus. Mesopotamia's damp soil destroyed organic stuff, but preserved baked clay. But the evidence shows they both used both. We have the Amarna letters, diplomatic correspondence found in Egypt, written on clay tablets in cuneiform. And Mesopotamian art, like Assyrian reliefs, shows scribes using both tablets and scrolls, probably papyrus or maybe leather.
So they used whatever worked best for the job.
Seems like it. Pragmatic choices, based on the script, the purpose, the intended permanence.
And besides papyrus and clay, there were ostraka, the ancient post-it notes.
Haha, yeah, that's a great way to think of them. Breaking bits of pottery, flakes of limestone, basically free writing material. People use them for quick notes, shopping lists, school exercises, doodles. They give us this amazing, unfiltered glimpse into ordinary, everyday life that you don't always get from the formal papyri.
Okay, but papyrus did eventually fade. What was the first big challenger? Parchment.
Yes, parchment. Developed, according to tradition, in Pergamum, that's in modern-day Turkey around the 2nd century BCE. It's made from treated animal skins, sheep, goat, calf.
And its advantages were?
Huge advantages. Much more durable than papyrus, less likely to tear. You could scrape it clean and reuse it. It wasn't destroyed by dampness like papyrus was. And crucially, you could make it anywhere you had animals. It broke Egypt's monopoly.
And it worked better for books, right? The codex.
Exactly. This is a key point. Papyrus is quite brittle. It's great for scrolls, but if you try to fold it repeatedly into pages and bind it like a modern book, a codex, it tends to crack along the folds. Parchment is much more flexible and strong, perfect for the codex format. And when the early Christian church adopted the codex for its scriptures, that really cemented parchment's dominance over the scroll.
And then came the final nail in the coffin. Paper.
Right. Invented in China, we think around 105 AD, and it gradually spread west, reaching the Islamic world by the 8th century. Paper's big advantage was cost. It could be made relatively cheaply from various materials, rags, later wood pulp. Production was simpler. Papyrus just couldn't compete anymore. It was squeezed out by parchment's durability and paper's affordability. By the 11th, maybe 12th century AD, papyrus production had pretty much ceased.
But even though it stopped being made, those thousands of ancient scrolls survived. It's an incredible story of preservation leading to this whole field of papyrology.
It really is a miracle. That hyper-arid climate in Egypt was key. No moisture means no mold, no decay for the cellulose papyrus. Plus, the inks they used, carbon black and mineral ochre, are incredibly stable, and being buried in sealed tombs certainly helped protect many of the best ones. We also have the unique case of the Herculaneum scrolls, charred by Vesuvius but paradoxically preserved.
Getting information off these incredibly old, fragile things must be nerve-wracking. What does modern conservation involve?
Oh, it's painstaking work, extremely delicate. Conservators start with meticulous mechanical cleaning, tiny brushes, careful tools. Then they might slowly, carefully introduce humidity to make the brittle fibers just flexible enough to unroll or flatten without shattering. Tiers are mended with things like Japanese paper, which is very strong but thin, using reversible adhesives like wheat starch paste, so it can be undone later if needed.
And how do they store them safely?
Traditionally, they're mounted between sheets of glass. That protects them but lets you see both sides, because text was often written on the back too, the verso. Newer methods use things like special inert mesh slings or polyester film encapsulation, offering great protection but also easier access for researchers.
Now, for the really damaged ones, like those blackened Herculaneum scrolls, you can't physically unroll them without destroying them. How on earth do we read those? This is where it gets really high-tech, right?
This is the absolute cutting edge. We're talking non-invasive imaging. One technique is multispectral imaging, using different wavelengths of light to make faded ink suddenly pop out, become visible again.
Okay, that helps with faded ink. But what about scrolls that are still rolled up and fused together?
For those, they're using X-ray-based methods. Techniques like X-ray phase contrast tomography can create incredible detailed 3D maps of the scroll's internal structure, layer by layer. It can actually detect the slight difference in density where the ink is.
So you can see the writing inside without opening it.
Exactly. And then, and this is maybe the most exciting part, researchers are using AI and machine learning They train algorithms on the 3D X-ray data to virtually unroll the scroll, flatten the layers digitally, identify the traces of ink, and reconstruct the hidden text. It's literally unlocking lost Greek philosophy and literature that we thought was gone forever.
That is absolutely mind-blowing, like digital archaeology.
It really is, and it just highlights how papyrology today is this amazing fusion of disciplines. You need the classicists and Egyptologists to understand the language and context, but you also need conservation scientists, chemists, physicists, computer scientists. Science gives us the tools to see and save. The humanities give us the meaning. It's a perfect partnership.
So from a simple reed growing in the Nile marshes, transformed by ancient ingenuity, carrying millennia of records, surviving against the odds, and now being read by AI, papyrus truly shaped Egyptian civilization, didn't it? It enabled their state, pushed their writing to evolve, enriched their culture, and preserved so much knowledge for us.
Absolutely. Every little fragment we find is like a direct phone line to the past. It lets us hear the voices, read the accounts, understand the science and medicine and daily lives of people from thousands of years ago. It's an incredible testament to their ingenuity and the world they built.
And the story isn't even finished, is it? You think about what might come next, maybe DNA analysis telling us exactly where a specific sheet of papyrus was made.
Yeah.
Or AI getting even better at deciphering and translating. The scroll, in a way, is definitely still being unrolled.